Welcome back, folks. House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 2 review. This will be the aftermath of the infamous Blood and Cheese. Green propaganda is in full swing. They are blaming Rhaenyra, dubbing her Rhaenyra the Cruell. We also get to see what Aemond does in his spare time, and we get a brother versus brother duel to the death. And I think this is the best of the 2 episodes so far. Back to basics, back to season 1 to 4 of Game of Thrones. Heavy plot, heavy dialogue, character focused episodes. And you can have your big moments sprinkled in. This episode was 70 minutes long and it doesn't feel like that. In fact, it's the opposite. I remember checking how long was left in the episode last night and I had about 10 left and I just wanted more. I'm in that weekly anticipation mode, and I think the weekly mode is the best model. Screw binge watching, it's great for some shows, but with shows like this you need that weekly build up of anticipation. And speaking of models, rest in peace to Viserys' Velaryon model. We just seen the second Doom of Valyria. But guys, the first time I watched this, I did think that head was going to roll. And if it did, it was all because of a pothole, which if you guys live in the UK, you know that's the most accurate British element in the show because our roads are absolutely terrible. That and the small folk struggling with prices through the roof. But don't worry guys, no dogs were harmed in this episode. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this review, I will say I've been feeling under the weather all weekend. I've been bedbound for 3 days, so if I sound like crap, video's not that great, I do apologise. But yes, top episode here, for the most part. The whole Cole Alicent affair, I'm not so keen on. I get what they're doing because she's been controlled her entire life until Viserys' death. And now that Cole is hand, I'm kind of interested to see when Aegon's going to find out. And it's unlikely the king will be very happy that his hand is smashing his mother. And there's a couple times Alicent wanted to confess to her father this episode. First time it got brushed off, second time he didn't want to hear it. Nah, I'm good. And as for Cole, the most hated man in Westeros, it's when he complained to Arryk about his cloak being soiled, even though his cloak has been soiled many, many times over. Not only for killing Joffrey, sleeping with Rhaenyra, and now with Alicent. He's like a wanker boss complaining about something so trivial, and he's also the biggest hypocrite on the realm, but he's also a very dangerous man. And all because Rhaenyra didn't want to run away and grow oranges with him. But I think we'll get rid of all the critiques first, we'll get them over and done with. The Aemond stuff was pretty weird to me. Everyone's expecting the badass swordsman with one eye, riding the oldest, most powerful dragon in the world, but he's actually been cheating on Vhagar with another older lady. It was kind of weird, kind of uncomfortable. You kind of get how he feels about what happened with Luke. He regrets it, and he reminds us that he was just a messed up kid. He was bullied by his nephews, but also the ringleader in this bullying was his older brother Aegon. Was it the pig dread? That was just horrible, the wee pig. And of course, the traumatic experience of his eye being cut out by Luke. And his father didn't really care about it. And if you think about it, all 3 of Alicent's kids are messed up because Viserys wasn't really involved. Rhaenyra was definitely his favourite, and Viserys' legacy is the Dance of the Dragons. And in season 1 we spent so much time considering whether he was a good king or not. But I think with every monarch in Westeros, it's never a straight answer, unless your name is Maegor the Cruel. And I will admit, I love how the show is not afraid to stay inside the fantasy medieval setting. I understand the violence against women and the overuse of nudity has been toned down. Still present, but most of it's off screen or it's subtle. But I appreciate how this show stays true to the setting of A Song of Ice and Fire. Women are still seen as lesser. Rhaenyra's claim was first disputed because of her gender. And it's further emphasised in this episode with something as simple as the king being spared from the funeral. But the queen and the queen dowager have to be expected. Guys, when Game of Thrones was at its best from season 1 to 4, it was not perfect. But we can't deny, when A Song of Ice and Fire is adapted properly, it's hard to beat. This episode is a prime example. Going into season 2, the blacks were far more popular, and are probably still, but perhaps the greens are far more interesting now. In the first episode, Aegon was a massive step up from season 1, and I think he was outstanding in this episode. From the rage of losing his son, the smug look on his face when he removes his grandfather's hand, cold silence with his wife on the steps, a pain they shared together, and then at the very end breaking down in tears. He's an emotional roller coaster of a character, and I remember in the early reviews they say he was a standout performance, and I can see it early doors, and I'm interested to see how they handle what awaits Aegon the second of his name. And Otto Hightower is another character. Pretty much everyone hates him as a character in terms of his motives and the type of man that he is, but it's a fine performance. Probably one of the top actors on the show, and he's running the ship for the Greens. It was his idea for the funeral for Jaehaerys to be a spectacle, to get the small folk on their side, to turn against Rhaenyra the Cruel. He's been sending ravens to all the other houses, forging alliances, not rushing in head first. Wait for more support. Avoid all-out dragon warfare, because dragon-on-dragon battles most of the time end with casualties on both sides. Unless you're something like Velaryon versus Quicksilver or Vhagar versus Arrax. And guys, Otto has never been shy to speak up to the king, both Viserys and now Aegon. And at this point he's sick of working with idiots and calls them out. He loses his job in the process, but we sure did enjoy seeing him do it. And he mentions Alicent's youngest son, Daeron, who is currently warden in Old Town, the seat of the Hightowers. And I think we're saving him for season 3 because I don't think he's been cast yet, but he plays an important role. I think the show's meant to be 3 or 4 seasons, probably 4, so we'll see him then. But I think that'll do for the Greens. Let's talk about the Blacks. Daemon and Rhaenyra have the most parent fight ever. Raised voices, household objects are thrown, dad walks out, and in this case flies off on his dragon. Love seeing Caraxes, my favourite dragon on the show. And I'm assuming Daemon is going to Harrenhal, perhaps to raise an army for Rhaenyra, like his original plan, but it's interesting to see how loyal he remains after Rhaenyra admits that she's never trusted him. She can't trust him, and she calls him out over him feeling passed over for the Iron Throne, because Viserys never trusted him. And Daemon is an important player in the Black faction, because many will flock to Rhaenyra's banner because Daemon is by her side. Not only because he's a male Targaryen, but also because he was the victor at the Stepstones. He was a renowned commander of the Gold Cloaks, and is arguably the greatest dragon rider alive. Daemon has screwed up big time with Blood and Cheese. He's harmed Rhaenyra's claim, but he's lucky that Aegon is doing his best to ruin his own reputation by hanging all the rat catchers and making the people starve. Daemon and Rhaenyra are at their best when they're on screen together. I think both Millie Alcock and Matt Smith were brilliant in the first 5 episodes, and Emma Darcy and Matt Smith continued that. The chemistry is real, but I believe they're going to be separated for most of the remaining 6 episodes, if not all, and we'll have to see how both characters cope without being able to play off each other. Right, as for the Velaryons, Rhaenys and Corlys, we get some pillow talk. Best marriage in Westeros, perhaps? But we've also got 2 potential bastards in Alan and Adam of Hull. I believe they're meant to be his or Laenor's. Officially in the books they're Laenor's, but that's highly unlikely because Laenor was a gay man, he couldn't get his wife pregnant. But speaking of Laenor, we did see his dragon Sea Smoke come back, and he was stalking Adam, so that's obviously his next rider. And we've mentioned the dragons a few times, but one of the complaints is House of the Dragon doesn't have a lot of dragons. Obviously budget reasons, you don't want to overuse them, CGI, blah blah blah. But I'm fine with them only appearing a few times, and then save them for when they're actually needed, during Rook's Rest and the Battle of the Gullet. Like, it's fine having short sequences, almost cameos, like in this episode where Daemon flies out on Caraxes, or Sea Smoke floats above, and then in episode 1 with Syrax and Rhaenyra looking for Luke. Just don't overuse them, don't waste them. I know I've said this several times, but that is one of the common complaints from the later half of Game of Thrones. It relied too much on dragons and spectacle. Forgot about character and story, and so far, with only a couple mistakes, House of Dragon hasn't suffered too badly with that. Right, we're going to finish this up with Cole's plan. We have Cargyll Bowl. Remember, Arryk's on Aegon's side and Erryk is on Rhaenyra's side. The way I remember it is Arryk, Aegon starts with A. So Cole's plan is to send Sir Arryk to Dragonstone to kill Rhaenyra, pretending to be Erryk, his twin brother. Not an awful plan, to be honest, but it's kind of rushed. They didn't consult the council. But then again, if you start consulting stuff, people get information out there because obviously Larry Strong is leaking everything and telling people what they need to hear and playing all the sides against each other. He's pretty much Littlefinger back in the day. And there's so many other spies out there. Now that Mysaria is on Rhaenyra's team, who knows how that's going to play out. Guys, both the Blacks and the Greens have more and more divisions every week. But I think Erryk versus Arryk, Cargyll Bowl is one of the best one-on-one sword fights I've seen in a long time. Simple, effective, not too overly choreographed, but it had a massive emotional weight behind it. 2 twin brothers fighting for duty, fighting to the death. But in the end, the victor can't live with killing the person closest to him, so they fall on their own sword. I believe Erryk did win because how he addressed Rhaenyra as your grace. An overall top episode, My only complaint was really the Aemond scene kind of felt weird and out of place. Perhaps that could be somewhere else. But I suppose it's character growth. And I just can't buy into the whole Cole-Alicent love affair. It can still happen, but we don't have to see them every single week. But they've definitely made Cole the most hated man in the fandom. But they've also kind of made Alicent ruin her relationship with her kids over this. Aemond she hardly speaks to. Obviously the stuff with Luke caused major issues between them. But even at the end, she wouldn't comfort Aegon. She went to get more of Sir Criston. And poor Helaena, she doesn't have a sworn protector for some reason. And in her darkest hour, her mother just wanted to discuss being caught in bed with the man who was in command of their protection. Guys, I just can't wait till this is out in the open. Like I said, Larys Strong will be in on it. He'll know all about it. He's got all of Alicent's staff under his control. And I'm sure he knows and he'll have to tell someone soon. And then we'll see what Aegon does. But guys, let me know your thoughts on episode 2. Do you prefer more character, more dialogue and plot-driven episodes? Or are you just happy for more dragons? That's cool if you like that, but I think you need to have a fine balance between both types of episodes. You know, you get your build-up episodes, and then your second to last episode in Game of Thrones was traditionally your big action, big traumatic episode, and then your finale would continue that. But you need those build-up episodes to get to those points. You can't do what Season 8 done and just jump straight into it. You need that build-up. Anyways, I think I've talked more than I have in the last 5 days in this video, so I'm going to just say bye for now, take care, and I'll see you soon.